Unless you've been hiding under a rock for the past few months, although some England fans may wish they were, the European football finals are taking place in Germany, with the final taking place on Sunday, the 14th of July. It actually hasn't been the football that's caught my attention, but it's been the sponsorship boards that go around the pitches. And I've actually had to Google some of the main sponsors' names, as they aren't necessarily household names. And it turns out a high number of these main global sponsors are Chinese companies. Dean, always great to have you in the hot seat. Let's try and shed some light on this. So tell us about the Euros. They're obviously a sponsor's dream.
Yeah, totally. And is it a reflection on the quality of the football that you're paying more attention to the sponsorship boards?
Possibly.
Well, let's start with some stats first on the Euros, because I know that you're a fan of stats. Euro 2024 is expected to generate about 2.4 billion euros in commercial revenues, with about 450 million of this to come from 13 global sponsors. That's about a 50% increase from 4 years ago at the last tournament. And it's not hard to understand why. The beautiful game is going to be watched by millions over the month-long competition. Audience figures in England, France, and Germany come in at about 10 to 20 million viewers per match, and it's estimated that there will be cumulative viewership of over 5 billion people. That's a lot of eyeballs for advertisers.
Sure is. So it's not surprising that sponsors are eager to get involved based on those numbers. But for me, the interesting part to all of this is the amount of Chinese companies sponsoring the event. Who are these companies and what do they do?
So yeah, this is also very interesting and obviously working, given we're speaking about this today. But Chinese brands have really embraced the Euros as a marketing opportunity. BYD, which is an EV brand in China, they used to have a tagline for their advertising of the biggest car brand you've never heard of. They're one of the main sponsors, and they're attempting to break into the European market. They've even beat out the likes of Volkswagen to become the official car brand of the tournament. Mm-hmm. What makes this even more interesting is that Chinese EV manufacturers are currently being hit with quite a large trade tariff, i.e. like an additional cost for bringing their cars to Europe. However, even with this in place, the brands still view Europe as a key growth market. So the hefty tariffs aren't currently putting them off.
Okay, so there are other brands. Hisense, the official technology sponsor, Chinese. Alipay, the official payment sponsor, Chinese. AliExpress, kind of the Chinese version of Amazon. Vivo, a Chinese phone manufacturer. All of these companies are main sponsors. So the obvious question is, does it work? Does sponsorship work in this?
Yeah, so I guess we should probably start with how much they're paying, given that they'll need to cover those costs, or that they hope to. It's generally a closely guarded secret how much the sponsorship deals go for. But Hisense, the official technology sponsor, they're rumored to have paid somewhere between 60 to 80 million euros. So it's not cheap. Yeah. But obviously they have reasonably deep pockets. Bloomberg have estimated that that Alibaba, they're the ones who own AliExpress, that Amazon competitor, will need to increase their active user base by over 70% to justify that marketing spend.
Okay, so any indication of how that's going for them? Are they having an impact on sales?
That's an interesting thing that you can get quite quick data on. So AliExpress app downloads surged by more than 100% in June across 24 countries that are participating in the Euros. And over the same period, downloads of Amazon's app have declined. So a bit of competition there. Mm-hmm. So far in 2024, BYD have sold about 12,500 vehicles across the UK, EU and other European countries. And that's obviously a tiny fraction of the market, sort of around 1%. But that is double what it did in 2023. So clearly marketing is key for getting that number to continue up.
Yeah, really interesting. Okay, so final question. Why are we seeing this now? Why so many Chinese names sponsoring this event? Actually, I think when I looked at this, a third of the tournament sponsors are Chinese brands.
Yeah, there's a few angles there, I think. China themselves, quite big football fans and have a reasonably large sort of viewership over there. But equally, they're trying to cash in on a large football tournament, and that has a large viewership in Europe. And it's effectively a growth market opportunity. They aim to leverage that to enhance brand awareness and build their own profiles in Europe. The political climate in the US makes it a much tougher market for Chinese companies to penetrate. Hence, they're focusing on Europe instead. So take BYD. Europe is a very viable market for electric and hybrid vehicles. We've more or less got the infrastructure there now, and that's continuing to build out. And it's much more mature than the US, with a stronger push from an environmental perspective. And although, as mentioned, Europe has adopted some trade tariffs for Chinese EVs, it's less than the US. And also, sort of generally speaking, BYD see Europe as a more accessible market than the US, where there's much more political pressure against Chinese imports.
Okay, really interesting. Dean, interesting conversation this week to see kind of Chinese companies really beginning to market themselves and focus on external markets in this manner, to be seen not just as a Chinese company, but as a global company is really what they're trying to do, I think. So I'm not going to, as we finish up, I'm not going to ask you about your predictions for the Swiss game on Saturday. It's going to be a toughie for England, but we'll leave it at that. So many thanks for your time today, and we'll be back next week with another topic that's caught our eye.
Thanks, Peter.